Now, the brand new album, it's called 10,000 Volts. It's out on February 23rd. We've got our first taste of the record with the release of the title track, the self-titled track, 10,000 Volts. We'll get to that soon. But first of all, tell us about working with Steve Brown, because I heard you say that you'd shied away from collaborations in the past, finding it easier to work alone. So how did this one come about? How did you team up with Steve for this?
Well, my fiancée, Laura, has known Steve since she was in her early 20s. And I've known Steve only on a casual basis for years. And, I tried co-writing with a couple of other friends of mine, my old guitar player, Derek, and I was working with Pepe Castro from the Blues Magoos, which is an old band which you may or may not have heard of. And it was going slow. So finally, Laura talked me into giving Steve a call. We got together and magic happened. I can't explain it. I can't actually verbalize it. All I can tell you is when we got together, sparks flew, and we just kept rattling out these songs one after another.
So how did it work between you then? I mean, in terms of the ideas, did you both come up with them and sit down together and it all just kind of mixed together and the best stuff kind of came from that?
Well, I mean, the great thing about Steve is that he's been engineering Pro Tools for 30 years. So as far as I'm concerned, when I'm recording, the less people in the studio, the better. Too many chefs spoil the stew. So for 90% of the record, it was just me and Steve in the studio alone. And we were bouncing ideas off each other. He'd bring me a song idea. I'd write a bridge. I'd rewrite the lyrics, 75 or 80% of them. And I put down a solo and a lead vocal, and we'd have a song.
And I've heard you say that some of the songs came together really quickly. In a week, you did 2, 3, 4 sometimes. So was it as magical as that? Did it all happen so quickly?
I write lyrics very quickly. And, I've spoken to several musicians that I know, and they said, they struggle with writing lyrics. I've never had a problem writing lyrics. And, I've never been to I never went to college. I never took any creative writing courses or poetry courses. And I don't know, it just comes natural to me. Sometimes I actually feel like the words are being beamed into my head by, I don't know who, aliens or whoever.
Whatever works.
I can write a song if the music is set. I can write lyrics for a song in 45 minutes.
Wow. Incredible stuff. And not jumping too far ahead, but is it something you could see yourself doing again, working with Steve in the future?
Oh, yeah. We've already planned on working together on my next project, which is going to be Origins Volume 3. And right now we've been working on getting special guest stars to be showcased on that record to make it more special. But that we're talking about, mid to late 2025.
A little while to go with that. So go back to 10,000 Volts then. I mean, you've said it's your best album since the solo record in 78. So many people talking about it. I think that the first video on YouTube is nearing 1 million views as well for the official video, that is. So why do you think it all came together with you and Steve, and this one just worked so well?
I don't have an answer for you. All I can tell you is I've written with a lot of different people. I've written with Paul Stanley. I don't think I've ever written a song with Gene, but I've written with Paul. I rewrote some songs with Peter in the past, and I've written with several other people. Chip Racklin we co-wrote Rock Soldiers. And I don't know if you're aware of the fact that his brother is John Voight, the actor.
Okay.
And which makes him Angelina Jolie's uncle. But I never had a chance to meet her. But we wrote, and his biggest hit was Wild Thing and Angel of the Morning. But, he's still doing it. I haven't seen him in years, but, people that know him told me that, he's still writing and working and producing. And ironically, last Monday, Eddie Kramer, the guy who produced my 78 solo album, as well as the Live 1 and 2, and a couple of other records like Rock and Roll Over, he contacted me, and out of the blue, I haven't spoken to Eddie in probably 10 years. And it was a lot of, we reminisced and discussed this and that. People have been trying to get a hold of him because they want to interview him about my relationship with him over the years. And, people still cite my 78 solo album as being one of my, greatest achievements. Plus, the hit single New York Groove was the biggest hit single that any of the Kiss members have ever gotten as a solo artist. So, I mean, I've learned so much from Eddie Kramer, his miking techniques, his production skills. He taught me how to use compressors and limiters and mixing consoles, EQ. He made me understand. You walk into a recording studio and you see this gigantic board, and it's very intimidating.
Yeah.
And you don't know what the buttons do. You're like, fucked. What Eddie told me that really kind of made it seem manageable was that he said, Ace, all you have to do is memorize one strip, because all the other strips do exactly the same thing. They're just different tracks. So he explained to me what everything did on one strip. And once I got that, I pretty much understood the way the console worked, except for, some of the other faders, the master fader and, certain sends, auxiliary sends and so on and so forth. And then, we started attacking the racks of outboard gear, compressors, limiters, digital delays. And, but, with Eddie in there, when I worked with Eddie, they really didn't have great digital delays and reverbs like they have today. So we used to strive to get natural ambience, by miking amplifiers and drums close and miking them, from a distance. And then we blend the sound together. When we were recording my solo album at the Colgate Mansion in Sharon, Connecticut in 1978, we had Anton Fig set up in the middle of the foyer, and there were staircases that went up, and he had microphones on the second floor aiming down at the drums to pick up the ambience. We kind of got that John Bonham sound in some cases. And so, I mean, me and Eddie have been very, very close. And he wants me to fly to London this week, at the end of the week, and be in some movie that's being shot at Abbey Road Studio. I don't know if I can make it because my schedule is so filled up, but I'm going to try.
That sounds absolutely fascinating. And just touching on the 78 record, as we said, we've got a few questions from listeners. We've got one from Ted Hogan that says, your solo record, obviously 78 was the biggest selling of the four. What do you remember of that time and when the idea was first floated to do the solo records? And how did it feel knowing that yours was the best of the lot?
Well, I didn't know it was going to turn out the best. It just so happened that me and Eddie and Anton put a lot of love into that record. I had just met Anton Fig at the beginning of that project. I auditioned him, and I wasn't even sure who was going to play drums on the record. And a good friend of mine that I went to high school with called me up one day and said, you should try out this drummer, Anton Fig. And then 2 days later, Eddie Kramer called me. He said, you should listen to this drummer, Anton Fig. So I thought it was kismet. I thought, something's going on. Anyway, I got Anton to the studio and we hit it off right away. And we jammed for half an hour. And I just said to Anton, you're the guy. And, since that day, he's worked with me on, dozens of records, not dozens, probably, 8 or 9 records.
You've got him back involved in this one. It's out at the end of February. Just touching on a couple of the tracks then. One of them I really enjoyed was Blinded. Blinded by Science, Blinded by Fear, Zeros and Ones have got us by the balls. Obviously, it's a song about technology. So give us a bit of the story behind that song.
I remember calling Steve after we were about halfway through the record, and almost all the songs are about girls. And that's a trap that most rock musicians fall into. Yes. When they start writing a song. It usually ends up being about a chick, So I had recently been reading some articles on artificial intelligence, and a lot of scientists and heads of CEOs of corporations. They're saying, there's a good chance in 5 or 10 years, if we don't regulate artificial intelligence, it might take us out. So because that was on my mind, I said to Steve, why don't we write a song about artificial intelligence? And even though I don't use the term in the song, if you listen to the lyrics, you get it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And in terms of AI and all that sort of stuff, did you use it on this record, or what's your thoughts on it in general?
Well, I kind of shy away from artificial intelligence. I'm old school. I still plug into old Vox, Marshall, Fender amps. I put them in an ISO booth, and I put the amp in the control room. And, just like, if you look over here, you see his Marshall in a box. And, the speakers are in the other room, which is ISO, which is completely soundproof. And then we bring up this, mic up the speakers, bring the sound, into all my preamps. And then we get it into Pro Tools. And that's how I record guitar solos and rhythm tracks. Acoustic tracks I'll just do in here with a microphone and an acoustic guitar. I usually do my vocals right over there.
Ah, okay.
You can see the microphone. And me and Steve will both wear headphones and turn the speakers off so they don't bleed into the mic.
Excellent. And there's some impressive looking guitars all around the walls there. I mean, what's your favorite of the ones you've got hanging up around you?
My who?
Your favorite guitar that you've got hanging up around you? Oh,
well, that blue one is one of my faves. I bought that about a year ago. Obviously, a couple of my Gibson 59 copies I love. I use on stage. And my Black Beauty triple pickup with cream pickups, that's upstairs in the bedroom. I was rehearsing with that this morning because I'm shooting the video Walking on the Moon Friday. So
stuff indeed. Now, in terms of the record then, of course, you're the spaceman, and there's a theme followed throughout some of the song titles in the record as well. Walking on the Moon, as you just mentioned, Up in the Sky, Stratosphere, Cosmic Heart. Was that a purposeful decision of yours and Steve's?
Well, there's song titles that just came up, Cherry Medicine was a song that we put together about halfway through the record. And I remember I had rough mixes, and, my fiance still has like tons of girlfriends she knows all the girlfriends she knew when she was in high school. So there's always girls over here. And, she has a 20-year-old daughter, and so they're always coming down to visit when they're here. And, I'd play them 3 or 4 rough mixes, halfway through the album. And they always said Cherry Medicine should be this first single. But the record company felt that, we should use the title track to kick off the first single. And we're doing Walking on the Moon, which originally was going to be the title track of the album. But I scratched the cover because I thought it was a little too cliched. And 10,000 volts seemed to be a little more exciting, and I liked the artwork that the artist came up with. And so we decided to release 10,000 volts first, Walking on the Moon second, and actually we're releasing Cherry Medicine the same day the album is being released, February 23rd.
So there we go. In terms of the record itself, as we said, February 23rd is when it's out. You can pre-order it now, get online and do the usual stuff. You can get various copies and things like that. But in terms of the release date itself, Mac the Wolf was in touch and he said it's almost 50 years to the day since the release of the original Kiss record, the debut Kiss record. So was that planned or was it coincidence? And looking back now, what's your feelings on that debut Kiss record?
I don't pay attention to dates very much, but I am into numerology. I have simian palms. Do you know what that is?
I have no idea.
Okay, if you look at my palms, you see I have the line goes straight across.
Yep.
On both palms. If you look at your palms, there's probably two lines that split.
Yep.
Yeah. 90% of the people on the planet have those kind of lines on their hands, but this is a trait that not that many people have. I mean, Tony Blair has them. He used to be the Prime Minister of England, I think. A lot of celebrities have it. It's supposed to mean it can mean you have maybe a little higher intelligence or you're more of a special person. I've always felt I was special. I have 163 IQ, and I never took a guitar lesson. But what helped me with music was I grew up in a musical family. My mother and father played piano. My brother and sister played piano and acoustic guitar. And I was the youngest of three children. And so I just kind of got it by osmosis.
I recommend everyone go out there and get 10,000 volts. Pre-order it now. It comes out February 23rd. And just one last plug for it, Ace. Tell us why everyone should go out and order their copy now.
Well, I think it's one of the best albums I ever did. I mean, I think it's probably as good as my solo album in 1978, which everybody seems to think is my best album to date. But I think this new album is equally as good as my 1978 solo album, and I think there's more than one hit single on the album. So if I was a Kiss fan or an Ace Frehley fan, I'd go out and buy it immediately when it's released on February 23rd, because you're in for a treat.